So let's get started. This call is being recorded, so you all will get a copy. But I think this topic is extremely important, and it's how do you increase temporary staffing margins and profits? And so I'd like to start out by, first of all, welcoming you. And I'm so glad. I know it's a busy holiday season, and I'm astounded by how many people signed up for this call. So it shows you what an important topic it is, and I appreciate you being here. But I'd like to start out with two questions. First is, can you think of one expense that has reduced for you in the past 2 years? I know I can't, and I think that would be a hard thing for you to come up with, like, has anything gone down? All we're hearing about is prices going up, and the cost of doing business just continually increases. The second question is, can you think of any expenses that have increased in the past year? Sadly, I'm sure the answer to this question is easy and would certainly include your overhead and your salaries and your taxes and insurance and workman's comp, just to mention a few. And there are so many other expenses, that you and I incur as owners of staffing and recruiting firms. On the other side of the question, okay, are the clients who don't want bill rates increased because they're trying to lower their expenses. And so who gets caught in the middle? You and I do. If you feel like your services are being commoditized and your margins and profits are suffering, I feel your pain, and that's why I created this content just for you. In the temporary staffing and recruiting profession, gross sales can be so misleading. As an entrepreneur, you're in business to generate profits, not provide jobs for the people that work for you. And what you have to focus on are net profits. I will never forget the day I was at a national convention and I had an entrepreneur in the audience stand up, very excited. He owned a temporary staffing firm and he had just beat out an international staffing company on a $2.5 million contract. And he was so excited. Now, I knew him. I knew who he was. I knew he had a temporary staffing firm, and I knew he had 2 employees. And so what I suggested, because everybody was applauding him, he got up and he was so happy that he had the lowest bid and that he got this over $2 million contract. And so I said, congratulations. I'd love to talk to you when I'm done and congratulate you, because I was really concerned about how a very small temporary staffing firm with only 2 employees could even handle a $2 million contract. And how did he beat out a very large firm that probably had lower expenses than he did just because they were so large? Well, he informed me when we met after my talk that he was going to travel, he was going to train additional staff, he was going to run more ads for candidates, and he was going to obtain the minimum insurance coverage that the contract mandated that he did. And so I asked him if I could talk to him the following week, and I did, and he shared all the details with me. And if everything went right on this contract, if nothing went wrong and everything went right, and you and I both know it never does, he stood to lose almost $250,000 on that deal. And he just panicked when we really worked out the numbers. He was going to actually lose $250,000. And so what I suggested is just to tell the company that he could not get the insurance coverage to get him out of the contract, which is what he did. I've seen assignments extended many times with no increase in the bill rate, but the pay rate was increased to entice the temporary worker to stay on. If your bill rates and pay rates are not quoted properly, you could lose money for every hour one of your temporary employees works. And I've seen this happen more often in the last 2 years than ever before because your expenses continue to increase. I know it's hard to find individuals to fill your temp assignments. It's hard to find anybody to fill any jobs out there right now, but you can't afford to find yourself working at a break even, because a break even never ends up as a break even. You end up losing money. And your clients are still judging us. They're judging all of us in your company on the ability to provide them with results. But when your sales team writes certain assignments, you know your recruiting team is going to fill them because of 3 things. The opportunity is within the niche. The opportunity represents your area of expertise. And your recruiters have filled the type of assignment that was written in the past, okay? And I'm telling you, this is what you really need to focus on in 2023, or who are you? I'll be honest with you, when I first went into this business, and I'm not going to tell you how many years ago, we were called a full service employment agency. And I did light industrial temp and I did direct hire. But the problem is I did light industrial temp, but I would place a secretary and then somebody would call me for a pharmacist or somebody would call me for an engineer. I mean, we were full service. We did everything. And I'll be honest with you, I was not making good money. And I didn't understand why. I was working incredible hours. So were my recruiters and my sales team, but we just weren't making money. And it never dawned on me that when you specialize, when you limit the amount of titles you place, that's when you make the most money, when you become known for what you do. And, and how much business, I want you all to think about this. How many temp assignments were written this year? And if you're a blended firm, how many temp assignments and direct hire orders were written this year that were not filled? And what did that do to your reputation or the reputation of your company? I never worry as a business owner. I never worry about the assignments or the contracts or the orders that we fill. What I worry about is the business that's written and not filled. And you might say, well, there's just a lack of talent. But what are the clients thinking of you when you take their time to write the business and they get no feedback and you don't fill their openings? Right now it's a candidate-driven marketplace, but you're still dependent on representing the best business out there. You've got to represent the companies that your candidates want to work for, but you can only represent those companies if they allow you to make a profit as a business owner. Again, you are in business to make a profit. You're not in business to, how many hours you have out there. Everybody talks about, well, we had so many hours this week, and we always talk about GMP, gross margin of profit. But what is coming to your bottom line? And that's something I really want you to consider over the next week or so, because you're either going to launch your business into 2023 as a very profitable business, or you're going to kind of, limp into 2023 because you didn't build up momentum and you haven't really looked at your expenses and what percentage is actually hitting your bottom line. If you've not done revenue modeling in the last year or two, this has to be something that all of you do, because revenue modeling helps you identify where you're going to make the most money. The easiest way to determine your best business is to conduct revenue modeling. Study where you've been successful in filling assignments in the last 18 to 24 months. And you heard what I said. Only study business that generated sales. Don't study the assignments you wrote or the job orders you wrote. Only study the business you filled, and then share the results of your revenue modeling with your sales and recruiting teams, because 85% of your efforts should be directed at your best business. I met with an individual at a national conference. This was like 4 or 5 years ago. And this gentleman was doing $10 million and he had tried to get to 20 million for 7 years. He had tried everything. He had changed his management team. He had changed his focus. He changed his comp. He had changed everything, trying to get to 20 million because he wanted to sell his business, and he knew that 20 million was sort of a benchmark. Well, he asked me if I could help him do it. And I said, quite frankly, I don't know. I don't know you. I don't know your business, but I could do some consulting for you. Just by 3 consulting calls, let's see what we can do. Well, the first thing I asked him was, how many positions are you filling? And he didn't know as the owner. So he went back and came back to me a couple of days later and said 59. And I said, if you're doing 10 million, are you writing 59 titles or are you filling 50? He goes, no, Barb, we're filling 59 titles. And I said, I don't think you are. And I'll be willing to bet you a free hour of consulting that 75% of your business is made on less than 10 titles. And he goes, you're wrong. Well, he came back a week later stunned. And he said, you're not going to believe this. And I go, I bet I will. He said, Barb, 82% of our sales are 6 titles. 6 titles are 82% of our sales. And I said, what percentage of the 6 titles are you filling? And his instant response was, well, all of them, Barb, it's 82% of our revenue. And I go, no, you're not, because you're writing 59 titles. You're working with VMS clients. You've got to keep the report cards up by submittals, not by fills, by submittals. And so you're working all this business that's not making you money. If you do nothing more than revamp your business and revamp your business model and how you're focusing your team and really focus on filling 100% of those 6 titles, there's your $20 million. Well, I have to share with you that same gentleman, I met with him just this last October at the same conference, and he announced to me that he's at 37 million and now his goal is 50 million. And he's still only placing 6 titles. Okay. But he has a team of 2 people that submit on the VMS, openings, fill a lot more, work on a lot more than 6 titles to keep his report card up. But guess what? They're almost filling 100% with those VMS clients of the 6 titles that he knows he's got candidates for, because this is where the recruiters are pipelining. This is where his sales team is really trying to write business. You've got to teach your salespeople a step-by-step process to qualify the clients that you want to do business with. There are so many companies that only purchase based on the lowest bidder. And do you really want to be, is that who you want to be? Do you want to be known as the lowest bidder in the marketplace? When a company thinks of who offers the lower prices, you should think of Walmart and not you. I don't think you want to be. You might not want to be Nordstrom's, but you don't want to be Walmart. You work too hard for what you do, and it's hard for you to find the temporaries to go out there and work. It's also hard for you to find the internal team. And when you're not making money and your margins aren't proper and your profits aren't enough, your team isn't making enough money. And I'm telling you, I cannot believe how many staffing firms are losing their internal teams because everybody's trying to find good people. And not only do low margins hurt you, every time a margin is shrunk, every time you re-up a long-term assignment and you increase the pay rate of the candidate, but you don't increase your bill rate, you've reduced the income that your employee is earning and you've decreased your profit margin. And why would you do that? So how do you earn higher margins? Well, one of the ways you earn higher margins is by retaining the best temporary employees. Your temporary workers are either your employees, and they want to know three things. The temporary employees that you've got should feel just as important as your internal team. They've got to feel that they're a part of you. They can't feel like an adopted child. They have to feel like you care just as much about them as you do your internal employees. When we do a holiday party, we invite all of our contractors. We just do, anybody that's working for us, whether they're an internal team or an external team, we're constantly in touch with them. And in any relationship, and this is in any relationship, your personal relationships, as well as your business relationship, people only want to know three things. This is your spouse, your partner, your kids, your friends. People want to know three things. They're never going to ask you. Every human being on the face of the earth wants to know the answers to these three questions. Do you care about me? Can I trust you? And are you going to do what you promised me you're going to do? When you provide the highest caliber of temporary worker to your clients, you can show them the return on investment that they're going to enjoy. But if you want your temporary employees to complete their assignments and accept the next assignment through your company, you've got to focus on 6 areas more effectively than your competition. And the 6 areas are, and again, the reason I'm able to give you these is I do training for LinkedIn. Okay. I think most of you know that. I have 17 courses with them. I also do training for our end users all the time. I'm speaking 50% in front of staffing and recruiting firms, and I'm speaking 50% now in front of your end users. And and I've been booed when I've been announced that I own a staffing and recruiting firm. I've had them say, "What are you doing here?" I've been invited, and I always ask them, what's important to them. Plus, I do calls for job seekers and they don't know who I am. So I'm talking to a lot of your temporary workers all the time. They don't know who I am. They don't know I own a firm. And so they complain about things all the time. And there's 6 areas that you have to improve on if you want to represent the best temporary employees and you want to keep reassigning them and you want them to love you. The first area is onboarding and orientation. That's their first impression of you, how you're treating them, and you've got to make sure if your client, you can't depend on your client companies to do the onboarding and orientation, because even though they tell you they're doing it, you've got to become a part of that. How are you recognizing efforts of your temporary workers? I know a lot of firms that now have a concierge. And I'm laughing because they have a temporary concierge, and that person's job is to do nothing than to interact with the temporary workers all the time, recognize them when they're doing things, talk to them. What training and development are you offering? It's interesting because millennials and Gen Z now make up 52% of the workforce. That's not my number. That's from LinkedIn. Millennials and Gen Z make up 52% of the workforce. The other interesting thing is that 50% of the workforce in 2022 is not working a full-time job. So isn't that interesting? So for the first time in the history of our country, over half the population is not working the traditional 40-hour-a-week full-time job. They're working 2 part-time jobs. They're working temporary or contract. Millennials and Gen Z are very apt to either work temporary or contract. They just love it. They love the flexibility. They love the unlimited time off, but they want training and development. If you're not offering some type of training and development, they will find companies that do. You've got to communicate and give feedback. And again, things are changing so fast. They're changing in your client company. They're changing in the way we do business. And so you've got to deal with change as a business owner or manager, but you've got to realize you've constantly got to change the way you're interacting with your temporary workers, because most of them are millennials and Gen Z, and they don't view things the way that the generations before them do. And you've got to understand the long and short-term goals of your temporary workers. I know a lot of us don't like temp to hire, contract to hire, because you lose your revenue generator. On the other hand, if that's their goal, if short-term they'll work temporary, but they're looking for a full-time job, you've got to help them get there. Because if you don't, other companies will do that for them. Now, I could spend an hour on each one of these 6 topics, giving you a step-by-step process. But again, we don't have time for that. And any action you take in any of these 6 areas is going to improve retention of your best employees. And again, you're going to get this recording, so you don't have to write these all down right now. I'm going to give you the recording. In addition, you've got to set up your staffing business like a franchise with an internal repeatable system for every process that you have. So when a candidate calls in, what are the steps? If they send in an unsolicited resume, what steps are taken? If they're interviewed, what questions are they asked and what answers are put in your ATS? There's not a recruiter or a salesperson out there that loves your ATS, by the way. If your people are saying they hate your ATS, they hate their CRM, and that's your applicant tracking system, your client relationship management system. The reason, I don't like mine. And I mean, we use it very well, but it's funny. The reason we don't like our systems is because we're salespeople and we don't want to document anything. But your people have to be putting the same information on every candidate in your ATS system. There has to be a sales process. There has to be a candidate and client branding. What's your follow-up system? What's your nurturing system? What type of system do you have for referrals? You have to have a process for everything. If you don't, then when you hire someone new, there's too long of a learning curve. And if someone leaves and they haven't documented anything in your ATS or CRM, they're taking all that information in their head to one of your competitors. And so you have to, your people have to know what has to go into your ATS, what must be documented, and think of every step of what you do. And there's got to be a system for everything. Now, I also believe that 40% of the fills you make and the placements you make, if you're a blended firm, 40% of the business you fill should be referrals. This year in my company, I practice what I preach. 61% of the direct hires and flexible, people, the contractors we put out on assignments and contracts, 61% have been referrals. But we've really worked at this. Like, we really realize that referrals are the best way. I pay for no paid resources to generate candidates for my recruiting team. If I ever said I was going to run an ad in a job board, they would go, do not bother, because they know that job boards only represent 15% of the job market. And I want you to think about that a moment. Do you realize that website postings, job board ads, any kind of internal job postings, LinkedIn has proved that those only generate 15% of the workforce. Those are people that are conducting an active job search. And they're not only answering your ad, they're answering every other firm out there. That's why often you set up an interview and they ghost you, because they've called 6 or 7 other firms. What you want your team to do is generate the other 85%. Those are the candidates that are working, but will make a move for the right opportunity. That's who you have to have your recruiters going after. But let's talk about, how do you dramatically increase referrals to dramatically increase your margins and profits? Because I'm telling you, when people refer candidates to us, they're always a much better caliber than we're going to get on our own. Because candidates know they're not going to earn a referral fee unless we place the person in a job. So they even ask us, we say, these are the 6 titles that we really specialize in most. Anybody that has this title, we would love a referral and we'd love to compensate you for it. Your internal temporary employees, and by the way, your internal employees and your external temporary employees are either your army of recruiters or they're being recruited away by your competition. There's nothing in between. So when is the last time one of your temporary workers referred somebody to you? If at least 40% of your fills and placements are not referrals, you really need to look at your referral program. Now, I'm going to give you 4 of the 8 steps to increase a candidate referral program because of limited time. But these are 4 of the 8 steps that represent the top referral programs, in the country that I know of. And I have the advantage of training for a lot of companies. And so, I hear good ideas and I always adapt them when I see they work. Number 1, you have to have a specific referral process. And everybody in your office has to know what your referral process is and how it benefits them. And when do they ask for referrals? That's part of your step-by-step process. When do you ask candidates for referrals? There have to be specific times that your recruiters know they ask for referrals. You've got to assure the candidates are not referring their competition. The reason you're not getting referrals, it's usually twofold. You're not asking for them, and the candidates might know of great people, but they don't want to send you somebody better than them because they think they're going to be their competition. I want you to teach your recruiters all to add 6 words to their recruiting presentations. Posting and praying jobs does not work. It does not work. I always compare our recruiting team to, are they goldfish or are they sharks? Are they sitting in a bowl waiting for you to pay for ads and waiting for you to give them all these paid resources, and then you're bombarded with candidates you're never going to place in a job? Are they sitting there waiting to be fed like a goldfish? Or are they going out there and going after the best talent, which is what you need them to do? If you teach your team these 6 words from your last place of employment, ask every temporary they interview, who was the best forklift driver from your last place of employment? Who was the best engineer from your last place of employment? Who was the best secretary? Who was the best, whatever you're placing, who was the best from your last place of employment? If your team is asking for referrals, you know what they're going to hear all the time? I don't know anyone. And the truth of the matter is, people should say, I don't know you. I don't trust you. Why would I give you a referral? Like they're of course they know people, unless they're a troll living under a bridge somewhere. They know people, and people are more networked than they've ever been. And temporary workers work at so many different companies. They know temporaries from other companies. But if you ask them who was the best and insert a job title from your last place of employment, that eliminates the answer, I don't know anyone. So tell your team, if you ever get the answer, I don't know anyone, when you're asking for referrals, you now know you've asked the wrong question. Don't ask who you know. Don't ask who's interested. Don't ask who's above average. Ask who was the best, insert the job title from your last place of employment, and you'll get names. Be known for what you do. You cannot be a general service temporary agency. You can't even be a light industrial temp agency or an office support temp agency, because if you say you only do office support, they're thinking strictly clerical, and maybe you place other jobs in addition to clerical. If you say you're just call center, have you ever done anything other than call center? You want to be known for what you do, but if you do light industrial, you could do nothing but forklift drivers. You could do nothing but skilled labor. You could do nothing but, what about skilled trades? Plumbers, engineers. People are screaming for these people. I knew a light industrial firm that was squeezed out by a major company, and the owner didn't know what to do. And I said, why don't you switch over to skilled trades? Because no one is doing skilled trades in your area. There's a lot of industry in your area. People are screaming for it. That was 2 years ago. All they're doing now are different types of, they're doing plumbing and electrical engineers and other skilled trades. And so they're doing trades, and they got away from light industrial temp, and their margins, dramatically increased. What can you do? Look at what you're placing now. What kind of temporaries are you placing? Who are their supervisors? Why don't you start placing those? That's a great way for you to increase margins. Just go up a level, place the supervisors of who you're currently placing, and your margins and your profits automatically go up. Now let's talk about 8 steps to increase client referrals. Well, I'm going to give you 4 of the 8 steps. We had to limit this only because of time, but I'm trying to give you some of the best tips I can.
Yeah.
4 of the 8 steps is, number 1, develop a referral process. Number 2, I hear somebody in the background, and I had muted out everybody's line. I think David, your last name starts with an O. Please mute your line. For some reason, you're getting through. If you could mute your line, David, that would be great. So you want to develop a specific referral process and assure clients, if they give you, your clients know other companies that could use you. If you want to develop more clients next year, go to your best clients, because absolutely, positively, they know other clients that could use your services. But if you're not filling all of their assignments, they're worried if they give you a referral, that how does that benefit them? Consider donating to their favorite charity in their name if they give you a referral who hires from you. The year we did that, our referrals increased by over 350% when we started donating to people's charity in their name, and recognize the charity and your client if you decide to roll that out. Again, we could spend hours on this and how do you increase client referrals? I just want all of you to realize that some of your best clients are probably people you've never talked to, and neither of your salespeople, and your clients know who they are, and your clients can give you referrals, but clients are no different than anybody else, and again, for a while, we were doing other things, but the minute we started donating to their favorite charity, it was crazy. The latest version of our client referral program increased our referrals by over 350% in a year. And that's not a coincidence. I went right to clients and asked them, what could I do? What would they find valuable? And again, if you don't have a client referral program, you're losing a major opportunity to give your team a tool that they can use to develop new clients. And again, your best client could be somebody your team has never talked to. Now, let's get back to increasing margins and profits. I want to talk about this as much as I can. To be successful in negotiating higher margins and profits, your salespeople must be extremely confident when they're discussing bill rates. I am telling you that clients can sense, and they will take advantage if they realize that your team is very uncomfortable with the bill rates you're quoting, or they believe. Have you ever had your salespeople come in and say that, our competition is just not quoting this high? I would write more business, but our competition is quoting lower rates. I've never met a salesperson, and my salespeople have said that to me, and I go, well, then you're not calling on the right companies. We don't want to be Walmart. And that's always the response I give to everybody. I don't want to be Walmart. I've never wanted to be Walmart. I don't want to be Walmart. I've got to make money. I'm in business to make a profit. Or they're willing to negotiate your bill rate too fast. I want to share 4 of 9 strategies that will help your clients realize the costs involved in providing top talent and realize that it's a wise investment to pay you fair margins and profits, because they're in business to make profits and you're in business to make profits too. I've actually reduced it to the ridiculous. I remember this was years ago that we had a hotel and they wanted us to, provide a bunch of temporary workers for them. And they were quoting this ridiculous rate. And so hospitality was not something I'd ever done. And so I was going to refer them to somebody else, but I said to them, nobody could work at the amount that you're quoting for a bill rate. That doesn't allow an owner to make a profit. And before I refer you to a company that can do this for you, I've got to know that they can make a profit on this business. And they go, well, that's not my problem. And I said, okay, how about I rent 5 hotel rooms from you, and I want the best hotel rooms you've got. And I want to hold a party with top shelf alcohol, and I want it on New Year's weekend. So 5 nights, New Year's weekend, top shelf, best party, best food. And they go, are you serious, Barb? And I go, yeah. And I said, but I only want to pay you $500. And they started laughing. Well, that's so ridiculous. That's what you're asking us to do. Give them an example, look at what business they're in. And if they don't understand, offer them a ridiculous price for the services or products that they offer. And all of a sudden they realize, wait a minute, they just think, I don't know what they think, that we can just work at a break even, or because they don't want to spend money, we've got to take the hit. No, as an owner, you can't afford to, because I've got news for you. Your expenses are going to go up next year. Health insurance never goes down. Workman's comp never goes down. And the government keeps putting all these restrictions and rules and regulations. If you're in California, God bless you. California has the worst overtime laws, and the worst. I mean, it's crazy what you have to do if you live in the state of California right now. And so our world is not getting easier. You got to protect yourself, protect your business, protect yourself, protect the people that work for you. Now let's go to some of the solutions. Okay. Number one is share expectations with your clients. Show them what you expect from them and what they can expect from you. It's amazing. I don't know what they think we do if we come back to our offices and go to a magic database and just pull people out. I don't know what they think we do, but when you really share detailed expectations of what you do for them, they realize that, oh my God, you do a lot of work, and they realize the value of your service. We give expectations to both candidates and clients, what they can expect from us, what we need from them. And when we tell them what we need from them, we explain how it benefits them to do it. So if you tell somebody, and I don't call it expectations when I'm giving something to a client, this is what we need from you to present the best talent to you. But I always, after I ask them to do something, I always tell them why it benefits them. Number 2, position yourself as a consultant, not a vendor. when you're perceived as a consultant who's a workplace expert, your rates increase. You can't just have your team talking to your clients when they're making money. Because when I do training for corporations, I spoke at the CEO conference this year. And I was telling them how we're all workplace experts. We want to partner with them. What I'm doing is going in front of corporate audiences, manufacturing conferences. I've been to them all, and just trying to show them how to work with us. And they go, Barb, we're a source of revenue. That's all staffing firms view us as a source of revenue. I go, no, we want to be your sounding board. They go, the only time you talk to us is when you're making money. Got to stop doing that. You've got to give them information. They've got to hear from you. You can't just have your salespeople have relationships with your key accounts. Owners and managers, you have to have relationships with them. You don't want to lose an account when you lose a salesperson. So they've got to know, you've got to know all your key accounts. I believe in negotiating a conversion fee for everyone who converts to a direct hire. I don't understand why people aren't doing that. And we charge a flat 20% fee if they convert, a temporary worker into a direct hire, or a contractor into a direct hire. You might say, I can't do that. That nobody will do that. Well, what if you just say that because, a conversion fee and be able to convert them over and do all the paperwork and that, there's a $500 conversion fee or $1,000 conversion fee if you don't have anything now. Start small, but start doing something. Please do not say if you work X amount of hours, you've got this person because you feel you've made your profit. Yes, you've made your profit on that person, but you've just given away a revenue generator for your company. Just given away a revenue generator. Stop discussing markup, because it differs with every candidate. I'm amazed. I just did in-house training for a huge temporary staffing firm. It was amazing to me. And I kept hearing them say, well, we try to get a markup of this percentage, but what markup are you willing to pay? I heard salespeople saying this, and I was like, oh my God. And the markup they were quoting was really, really low. And so when somebody asks our organization, what is your markup? I go, I have no idea what the markup is. Because quite frankly, it depends on the candidate that we send to you. We have people with 2 years of experience. We've got people with 6 months, 5 years. It depends on what that person's earning. Give me what you want us to bill you at, and I will give you the best person that I can give you at your bill rate. But our markups are very different. It depends on, we have candidates at all level of experience. Now, if you're working a VMS, if you're working, those arrangements, you can't do this. The bill rate is set, the pay rate is set, and they take a percentage of the margin that you're going to get. And that's in concrete. But, you don't only want to have VMS clients. You want to have clients where you have direct contact with hiring authorities, where you can charge what you're worth. And I know some of you are making good money on VMS accounts, but I want you all right now to look back at all the VMS accounts you're working for. How many candidates were submitted? How many were hired? And what profit margin did you make on that business? Because there's some great VMS out there, and there's some horrific VMS clients out there. And many VMS firms are owned by staffing and recruiting firm owners. And so you could be filling the database of one of your competitors without even realizing it. Your margin is going to fluctuate depending on the pay rate of each candidate. And start teaching your team not to talk about markup. Well, I would love to go into a store and say I went and I went to buy a snowblower at Menards. I would love to say, by the way, what's your profit on this? They'd look at you like, what? Well, what's your profit on this? I want to know what profit you're going to make. That doesn't happen, does it? And yet people want to mandate what profit you and I are going to make. That's not their job, and it's not our job to give them our markup. We've got to change that. You've got to change that mindset. I tell you, if you implement any of the ideas I've shared with you today, you're going to increase your staffing margins and profits. Now, I'm going to answer questions after I just give you a couple more pieces of information. The information that I've shared with you today is less than 2% of the information that I share in some of our training programs. We've just rolled out a brand new temporary staffing, recruiting and temporary staffing sales tutor. And our tutors, I had to be in a studio for a year because nobody wants to read training anymore. So for the last year, I've been in studios redoing all my training. And since COVID, so much has trained that the training I wrote 3 and 4 years ago is outdated. If you haven't updated your training program since COVID, chances are your training is outdated too. And if you look at our training program, you're going to feel a higher percentage of business written. You will have step-by-step repeatable processes for every piece of your business. I do share our candidate and client referral programs. I share all my forms. I share the list of expectations. It's going to teach your sales team how to focus on the return of investment when they're increasing profits and much more. Continued professional and personal growth is a top priority of millennials and Gen Z, who now will represent 70% of the workforce by 2025. Isn't that scary? Millennials and Gen Z are going to be 70% of the workforce by 2025. That's an incredible number. So if you want to increase your margins and profits and attract the best internal and external and grow your business, you have got to be providing training and development. Whether you use ours or not, you've got to be providing training. Because we're just rolling this out, we're going to give a 25% discount to the first 10 people. And there's a QR code there that you can either call our office. There's a number. You can click on that QR code and set up a time. You'll get a Calendly invite, and you could set up a time to talk to one of our experts. And the people that work for me are going to focus 100% on you and your priorities and what you're facing right now. So whether we might be your solution, we might not be your solution, because we don't know you. And we don't know what you currently are doing. We don't know what your goals are for the future. So whether we're your solution or not, the call will be worth your time, because all of my experts have worked in the staffing and recruiting firm. No one's worked for me for less than 10 years. I probably should knock on wood right now, because I just said that out loud. I don't believe I just said that out loud. But anyway, they'll focus on what's important to you. Or if this sounds like something that really interests you, you could click on these QR codes, but use that discount code, the coupon code 25% off, because that discount is not on the website. This discount is only being offered to the people that showed up for this call. So what I want to do now is I want to answer any questions. So I'm going to unmute everybody, and this is probably going to be a nightmare because I am going to unmute everybody. And so please be careful that you're not talking out loud. So let's see. Let me unmute everybody. Let's see. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to allow you to unmute yourself. How about that? So if you want to unmute yourself, you can just on the microphone. Now I do see 4 things in chat. So let me go to chat real quick. Hold on here. Okay, come on, chat. Let's see. I've got 4 people in chat. I'm wondering if I can get your notes. You're going to have all that. You're going to have everything. You're going to have notes. You're going to have the recording to this call. You're going to get everything. What is a VMS? A VMS is a vendor management system. And those are companies that go on site and they convince people, to use them versus using staffing and recruiting firms. So staffing and recruiting firms submit resumes, and the number right now is out of 100 resumes, you'll get interviews for 7 people. That's the average right now. And the VMS companies grade you on submits, not on fills. I've got somebody for future resumes. You might consider turning on transcripts, because 94% is about, oh yeah, and understand something. I'm going to give you the handout. So you're going to get the handout and the recording. So everything I said that I was reading from my handout, I don't want to put that much on the slides, but you're going to listen to it. And I'm telling you, I've learned people want to listen and not read. I've learned that big time. Everybody wants videos. They want to watch videos. And so we've done that. So you're all going to get that. Let's see. I have to go to my owner. I'm a manager. What if I'm not one of the first 10? What I would say is call our office and just put your name in. Let me go back a slide. There's the number. Let me put the number to my office up there. And again, I can, let's see here. Why won't my slide go back? Hold on a second here. All of a sudden I'm technology challenged here. Let me see if I can get it back 1 slide. There you go. There's the number. If you call them and give them your name, they'll put you on a list. Okay. Does anybody have any questions? All you have to do is unmute yourself. So go to your name and you'll see that red microphone and just unmute yourself.
Hi, Barb. I got a question for you.
Hi, David. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing fine.
I've got your top producer tutor. I did purchase that. Okay. And is this that much different, Barb, or is it? I know it's
anybody that owns my top producer tutor is going to get this tutor. So you don't have to pay for it. Anytime you own one of my training programs, when we upgrade, we've just launched this like in the last week. So what my team is doing now, David, is they're calling all of our current clients and they're updating them. We had to, what I did is I had an LMS. Your tutor's on an LMS. I went to dump all these videos on our LMS and almost blew it up. I almost blew our tutor up because of the bandwidth. So I couldn't release what I did. So I had to then develop a new learning management system, because if you buy one off the shelf, it's like $100 a month per person. It's ridiculous.
Right.
So we developed a whole new system. So we will take your team that are registered in your tutor, we'll switch you over, or you call my office, David, and ask to be switched over, because they're calling one by one now and they're converting all my current clients, and you get this new training free.
I just talked to Jody a little bit ago, so okay.
Okay, yep. All right, then she'll convert you over.
Okay, well, thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Anybody else have any questions?
Hi, Barbara. Good morning. It's Kimberly from Aeromac. How are you?
I'm fine, Kimberly. How are you?
Doing well, doing well. So quick question to circle back on your statistic about the VMSs, because I find that to be very interesting, because we, as a small business, we're really trying to veer away from the MSP VMS model, just because we're realizing that ultimately, to be honest, it's just not as profitable, you know, as some of the other companies that we work with. But you mentioned 100 resumes. When you were saying 7, is it 7 placements or 7 interviews?
7 interviews. And that's not my number. I get my numbers from, like, I'm friends with all the networks. I'm friends with all the ATS companies, you know, and so we monitor this stuff. And the last number that I heard, if you have no contact with the hiring authority, if you submit 100 resumes and you have no connection with the hiring manager whatsoever, you'll get 7 resumes. You'll get 7 interviews. And out of those 7 interviews, you might make 1 or 2 fills. If you have contact, if the VMS is allowing you to have contact with the hiring managers, those numbers double, but it's still way below the average ratios that you get when it's non-VMS. And plus, you're filling their database with your candidates.
Right. No,
because what's always made me very suspicious, and I know there's some good VMS. Please don't go out there and say Barb Bruno said all VMS.
No,
there's some good ones, but your report card, they judge you on submits, not fills. What does that tell you? You're judged on submittals. You know, I would think that they would judge you on the quality of the submittals. How many jobs are they filling as a result of working with you? No, that report card is strictly based on submittals, which, you know, if you're a small business, you want to go out there, and this is it has been, is, and always will be a relationship building business. And I want to share a story with all of you. We did something during COVID that, you know, I was asking my team, because I mean, we all were just like in shock in March of 2020. It was like the sky was falling. And finally, in about, you know, luckily we had a strong February, so things were still happening in March, but April, we're like, oh my God, what's going to go on? So I asked my team, what are you hearing from our clients? What's their biggest deal? And I said, what are they complaining about the most? And they go, you want to hear something funny, Barb? It's that they've got kids graduating. There's going to be no graduations. And I went, oh my God. And I thought about that. Some of my clients said that too. So we researched and found out we had 18 clients that had kids graduating from like kindergarten, 8th grade, high school, college. So what I did, and I'm sure in your town, they have those massive signs, congratulations, graduate, that you can rent, this massive big sign. We had those delivered to the homes of our clients that had kids graduating. And we found out the school colors and had balloons attached. Okay. And we did that to all our clients that had kids that were graduating. It was incredible, the response. But I know everything about my clients. I know where they went to college. I know if they have kids. I know if they have a wife. I know if they have a partner. I know what sports teams they back. My Bears are so bad this year that they're having so much fun with me. Every Sunday, I probably get between 40 and 50 emails just giving me a hard time about the Chicago Bears. You know, but I'm always playing with them about what colleges do they back. You got to know everything about them. This is a relationship building business. When you become friends with your clients as an owner manager, you should be friends with your clients and know everything about them, because then it's not as easy for somebody to replace you. You know, and you want to have multiple contacts in every client you have as well. You don't want contacts are leaving faster than they've ever left before too. So you got to have 2 or 3 contacts at every company. But yeah, that's my feeling on VMS. It's just not, you know, you could have 1 or 2 people that are just volume, you know, feeding the VMS, but you got to look at your profit margins. Like I said, we look at gross margin, you know, the gross sales number is very misleading. People could do $2 million in sales and make nothing and make no profit. I mean, I've seen it. I've seen it happen. I've seen people go out of business because they had somebody quote a very bad rate. It put them out of business, or they didn't collect. They left somebody on a job and their accounts receivable were at 120 days and they had a volume of people out there. They didn't want to lose a big account. Company went under and they never recouped all that payroll. So, I mean, you got to protect yourself, got to protect your business. Any other questions?
Thank you, Barbara.
You're welcome, Kimberly. Any other questions, anybody? All right, well, it certainly has been a pleasure, speaking to all of you. You will get my notes, you will get the recording. And I appreciate all of you being here. I wish you a wonderful holiday season, and make sure that your team knows that there's budgets that have to be spent before the end of the year. Don't let them write out the holidays. Every company I talk to, they're trying to spend their hiring budget so they get the budget next year. And again, I think it is absolutely worth your time. You have nothing to lose by either setting up a call with one in my organization or calling our office and at least discussing some of the challenges you're having. Like I said, we might be your solution or not, but at least we can help you. We'll give you some advice that'll make the call worth your time. So thank you, everybody. And I'll do free calls, and also follow me on LinkedIn. Like, I could unlock one of my LinkedIn courses a week ago. And I put it out on LinkedIn, because they only unlock it for 48 hours. And so I can only unlock a course to my followers. So if you don't follow me on LinkedIn, send me an invite to connect, because I do release my LinkedIn courses like twice a year. And I do free webinars throughout the year, and any training I can give you, whether it's paid for or not, I want to help all of you, increase margins and just be a more profitable business. So thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful holiday.
Thank you. You too.
Okay. Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Bye.
Barb.
Bye-bye.
All these smiling faces, I love them.